Hey guys, Fireman Dan here. Welcome back to another episode of Space Engineers. So today I thought I would go through some of the basic building blocks of the game. And this is all vanilla, there's no mods here. Some of them work for large grid, some of them work for small grid, some of them work for both. I do not have the large and small grid version of everything in here. I just want to keep the block count down, easier to go through. You can experiment on your own of what works. Some people also use blocks for things that they're not meant for, kind of like decorative blocks. What else? Let's see. There's little tricks where you can get large or small grid on the large grid, vice versa. But that's not what this is for. This is just your basic building blocks of the game to help get new players started. So let's come over here. Every ship is made out of either light armor or heavy armor. The light armor is weaker, obviously. The heavy armor is stronger. And 6 heavy armor blocks equal 1 single light armor block. And I just put this here. These are just some of the basics. You know, you got your square, your triangle, your cube, and whatnot. Now coming down to this side is your interior blocks, your interior walls. This one is just your vanilla wall that came with the game from the beginning. This is your sci-fi interior wall, which was came out as a DLC expansion. There's no difference between the two other than the looks. They do the same exact thing. So you don't need to use it. You can use your regular ones, but it's up to you which you want to use. And they don't do anything. They're just aesthetics. And I don't think they're actually very strong either. Like, you'd be better off using a light armor block on the exterior of your ship than a interior block. Moving on. Next is some of the power stuff. So here we got a small reactor, small nuclear reactor. There's nothing in it, but it would take uranium ingots. Obviously, the large nuclear reactor puts out more power than the small nuclear reactor. And you see max power output 15 megawatts, max power output 300 megawatts. Now once again, these are large grid, not small grid. Small grid will be different power outputs, but there is a small nuclear reactor and a large nuclear reactor. Coming down is batteries. Batteries are exactly that. They store power. So you can see max power stored 3.0 megawatts, current input 0, current output 95.34, stored power 3.0 megawatts, so max stored power 3.0, stored power 3.0, fully depleted in 1 day. If this was charging, it would say recharged in X amount of minutes or whatever the charge time is. Batteries, the advantage batteries have over reactors is batteries have a higher output, quick output if you will. I guess that's the best way to say that. So if I were to build a ship and I were to put reactors on it and I would try to move in 3 directions at once, so let's say forwards, upwards, and right. That's the best way you can test what your thrusters are going to, power-wise, is going to take. You can be maxed out on power, which is just the reactors. But if you throw a couple of batteries on, the batteries could increase your maximum power output, because the maximum power output of batteries is higher than reactors. The difference is they don't last as long. So this can be depleted in, I don't know, a minute, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, depending on how much stuff you got running on it. Whereas this could be depleted in days, once again, depending on how much stuff you have on it. So reactors can last longer, but batteries have higher general output. So when I build my ships, I usually put, I put the reactors on, but I will also put some batteries in, because the batteries give me that initial boost that I need But reactors will give me the total longer output, longevity that I need. And if I look at this here, you see charge mode, auto. That's exactly what it sounds like. When it's in use, it'll drain. When it needs to be recharged, it'll recharge. You got recharge and discharge. Discharge is nothing but discharge. Recharge is nothing but recharge. So if I put this on recharge, these aren't going to be used at all. They're just going to sit there and charge. So whenever I build my fighters, small fighters, whenever I land, say dock to a base or dock to a mothership, I have the batteries grouped, and I got them down on my hotboard down at the bottom, and I would turn them automatically to recharge. That way I know the next time I get on my fighter, I'm going to have a full battery output. Next up, solar panels. Solar panels are exactly that. They have to be facing the sun, right? As you see, there's 2 bars down here. That means it's getting 50% of its potential sunlight. Well, see the pillar? 50%? Sounds about right, right? Let's come over here to solar panel. Type solar panel, maximum output is 78.39 kilowatts. Current output is 0. The reason it's current is I'm in a creative world. Power acts differently in a creative world. But if I was in survival, this would have a current output. Now in survival, you would rather use your, I guess you call it your green resources, your solar panels, and your wind turbines over your reactors. And the reason for that being is there was an update a while back where no uranium spawns on planets anymore. You can only get it on asteroids. So on this planet there's no uranium, which means I cannot power my reactors. The only way I'll be able to power my reactors is by taking a ship, preferably a miner, going up to an asteroid, finding uranium, mining it, and bringing it back down. That's why solar panels and wind turbines are better for planets. The catch is, solar panels only work when the sun's up, and they have to be facing directly to the sun. If I was to take this and turn it sideways, you'll barely be getting any power out of it. So when you build these, you got 2 options. Number 1, you build them to where the sun is, so the sun can come up this way, over my head and come down. The sun come up, come down over there, come up, come down over there. You would prefer to build them to where the sun rotates, facing the sun as much as possible. Option B, there are scripts out there, that solar alignment scripts, where if you put them on rotors, they will automatically just, literally they will track the sun and you'll get your maximum output during your daylight hours. Next, wind turbines. Wind turbines are exactly what they sound like. They use the wind to provide power. They need to be off the ground, and I believe it's been a while. I think you need like 30 blocks. I build mine like 30 blocks, but don't have to be that high. And you need a certain amount of clearance around them. So if I put for maximum output, so I can put a second wind turbine right here, but it's going to degrade their potential output. So I would probably want to space them out a little bit. Let's come on down here. Reactor. Access this. Wind turbine. Current output 0. Clearance optimal. Optimal, that makes sense. Current output 0. Once again, it is 0 because I'm on a planet. Or sorry, I'm in creative world. Actually, let's try this. Let's turn this off. Let's come in here and turn this off. Let's see what it does. Actually, we'll even turn the battery off. So go to wind. Oh, there we go. Current output 79.63 kilowatts. Go back to the solar. Current output 15.72. Alright, good enough. There's also hydrogen engines. I'll pull one out for you. Hydrogen engine. There's both large grid, small grid hydrogen engines. I don't like to use them because they go through an awfully lot of hydrogen. On an Earth planet, on Mars, on the alien planet, a modded planet, it's not necessarily a good thing. They have mods out there that kind of balance it out, but it still use a lot of hydrogen. If you're on the new world that just released, Triton, that thing is full of ice. This is what it is. It's an ice planet. So that may be a viable option for you. But I don't like them. They have an internal H2 storage that you can use. You can just connect to something, fill it straight up. You could hook it to a hydrogen tank to feed it. You could hook it to an oxygen H2O2 generator and feed it, which I got some of those down there. And you just connect it up to the supply port here, connector port. Alright, next, moving on. Control seats. They all do the same thing. This is a control station. You cannot fly with this one. This is just to control your grid. Oh wait, my bad. Yeah, I can control thrusters, wheels, whatnot. This one is the flight seat. This one is the control seat. Oops. And all three do the same exact thing. This is one cockpit. This is another cockpit. This is the industrial cockpit. This one comes with a DLC. And I skipped over this one real quick because this one does not have a large grid model. It can only work with small grids. If you see I'm pushing it around, it's not attached to it, not actually attached to the base. This is the fighter cockpit. And there are mods out there that give you some pretty cool cockpits, but they're not required. Alright, next up. Gyroscope. The gyroscope is how you look around. Up, down, left, right. If you don't have a gyroscope, you're pretty much stuck pointing one direction. If you build a ship, put a gyroscope on. The more you have, the more maneuverable you have, but also the more power you use. Alright, next. This is a parachute block. Parachute hatch. It's exactly what it sounds like. If you are falling out of the sky, the parachute, well, acts like a parachute. Some uses for this could be supply pod. You can drop let's say you're in a multiplayer, you can drop a supply pod to your friend, or you can use a drop ship, or if you're in a battle and you take damage and you're falling out of the sky, you can activate your parachutes, things of that nature. How this works: open, parachutes deployed. You've just seen it open deploy in the background. Closed is, well, it's closed. Auto deploy. If you have auto deploy on, this height is where it deploys at. So if I set this for 500-ish meters with that on, and this is falling through the sky, once it reaches this altitude, the parachute will automatically deploy without you doing anything. The good thing about that is that's how you can make automatic drop ships or supply pods. The bad part about that is if you're flying your own ship and you crash below this height, parachute's going to deploy on you. And if you're sitting there thrusting, trying to thrust with the parachute on, it can do some pretty interesting things. I mean, it won't blow anything up, but your ship will be flying around and it'll literally act like a parachute's holding it back. Alright, next. This here is some of the, I guess, production blocks, if you want to call it that. Basic refinery, exactly what it sounds like. It's a refinery, but you can only produce certain. What's this stuff? It can only create certain things. You can only put different ores in there. I can't remember which are which, like what it can take and what it can't take. But if you're just starting off and you're using the progression system that comes with the game, that you'll unlock this as you go along. So it's what it is. It's just one step up to get to the actual refinery. Refinery can refine, well, everything. And one thing to note is, you see on the back, you got these little pods here. One thing I did not put in this list is the modules. You got speed module, yield module, power efficiency module. Let's just throw power efficiency on there. See how the power efficiency, it's got the 2 yellow squares on the back. You just line them up. You can do either way. Do that way, or you can lay them over. I'm gonna put it on here. What do these do? Well, the power efficiency module is exactly what it sounds like. It decrease, if you see over here, power modules decrease the power consumption of refineries or assemblers when connected. The yield module increases production yield of refineries when connected. So if you put ore in here, it increases the amount you get per ore when you compared to a refinery with no yield modules on here. Speed modules just speeds up the production speed of refineries or assemblers. Here's what I would do. Generally speaking, in my opinion, power efficiencies aren't that useful because you can always just throw in more turbines or something on a refinery. I would do with at least yield. So maybe 4 yield. Up next, the speed is helpful because it increases the time you get your ore. But I would put, me personally, I put 4 yield on. You don't have to do that. You could, if you don't want to build as many power supply units or whatever you want to call them, you can put power supply. You can put the power efficiency on here. You can put the yield on here. You can put the speed on here. Up next, basic assembler. Same thing as the basic refinery, you can only produce certain items. By the looks of it, you get only certain ores are coming up. So you got iron, nickel, cobalt, silicone, and magnesium. So that's probably the only ores the basic refinery can take. The assembler, regular assembler, same thing as the refinery. It can produce everything, including tools, ammo. You got the 2 little squares on each side for the modules. I would put speed on assembler. The reason being, well, some items can take a while to produce. Well, not a while, but compared to steel plates, superconductors takes a while to make. And depending on what you need for superconductors, you can need upwards of 1,000 superconductors. That's going to take a while unless you got several assemblers running. So speed modules on assemblers are very, very handy. Last but not least, is the survival kit. The survival kit does, well, 3 things. Number 1, it'll give you your health if it is connected to an O2 generator, O2 tank, hydrogen tank. It'll also fill up your oxygen. It'll fill up your hydrogen. It'll also fill up your energy slowly. And by slowly, it's not really that slow, but compared to a regular medical station, it's slow. Secondly, you can respawn on a survival kit. Thirdly, the survival kit can make items like ingots. So you just put straight stone in here and you use ingots to make ore and ingots. A little bit, not a lot. And you also produce basic parts. So you can use the basic parts and the ingots from the survival kit in survival world to make basic assembler or basic refinery, basic assembler. From there, you could get your ore in your basic refinery, basic assembler, basic assembler to produce a regular refinery and a regular assembler. From there you can make everything else. So really you start off on this, and you end up on the next 2, basic, and you end up on a regular refinery, regular assembler. Okay? Next, your med bay. Right? Medical room. Medical room does everything that the survival kit does, except it cannot make ore and it cannot make modules or parts. the medical room, you fills up your health, it fills up your O2, fills up your hydrogen, it fills up your electricity, and allows you to spawn, and it does it a lot quicker than the survival kit. Alright. Next up. This is your O2 generator. Oxygen, hydrogen generator. It does several things. One, obviously it creates oxygen and it creates hydrogen. You need oxygen to breathe, and you need hydrogen to use your jetpack. So you would take this here, and either on that port or on this port up top, and you connect it to the top of the medical room, so you can refill at the station. You will connect it to your hydrogen tank, which is right there, and your oxygen tank, which we'll get to that in a second. And you also connect it to the back of your vent. And it will take ice to create your oxygen and your hydrogen density. Also, you can get tanks, little tanks you carry around. You can get oxygen bottle, and you can get hydrogen bottle. You carry those in your inventory, so you can fill up your oxygen levels and your hydrogen levels without returning to a med bay. The H2O2 generator, by putting them in the inventory, it will fill them up. It's not the only place you can fill them up. You can fill them up in the tanks. We'll get to that in a second. Next, the vent. The vent can either pressurize or depressurize a room. So if I were to create a sealed room here or up in space, hook a vent to it, to one of the tanks or the O2 generator, this will pressurize that room for me, so I can breathe without having a helmet on. Or, if you go in here, you see where it says depressurize on? If I were to hook this straight to a tank, I can create airlocks with this. Or, say a hangar. If you were to create a hangar on like a carrier or a larger ship or something, and you don't want to waste all the oxygen in the hangar bay, you put an oxygen tank, not attached to anything, because it'll fill up. Put your oxygen tank and attach it straight to a vent. That's it. Nothing else. And when you hit depressurize, you have to turn this one on depressurize, and it will fill up the oxygen tank. And you say you have another one that pressurizes the room, you have to turn that off. So because you don't want oxygen being going from your system into the room, then into here, and into the oxygen tank. But that's a different story for a different tutorial for a different day. Basically, put the vents pressurize or depressurize rooms. Okay? Moving on. This right here is an oxygen farm. This creates oxygen, not hydrogen, oxygen only. It works the same way that the solar panel works. By direct sunlight, and it creates oxygen, and it will fill up a room or oxygen tank. It does it slowly. So oxygen output 0.66 liters per minute, that's only half. So it's probably, say, maybe 1 liter per minute. How much is that? Well, 50,000 liters for a basic oxygen tank for a large grid. It gives you an idea how long it'll take to fill up an oxygen tank. What I would do, I would use your H2 generator to fill up your base, fill up your oxygen tanks. Then, when you're ready, when it's filled, turn this off and just use this. It'll save you a lot of ice for breathing. I can't remember the number of oxygen farms requires for one astronaut in space. I think it's 6, but don't hold me to that, and I don't exactly feel like going and testing it. Sorry, I'm being a little lazy. But I believe it's 6 of these for one character. Moving on. Oxygen tank, hydrogen tank, small hydrogen tank. Exactly what they do, what this says. Oxygen tank stores oxygen, hydrogen tanks store hydrogen. Oxygen is for breathing, hydrogen is for your jetpack or hydrogen thrusters. Hydrogen tanks are not required. You can always hook a O2 generator straight up to your thrusters, but one tank can't handle that many thrusters. So if you're going to build a ship with required hydrogen, it's a good idea to put hydrogen tanks on it, but not required. So these can also be connected up to the hydrogen engine as well. If you put the tanks in the inventory, oxygen tank in the oxygen tank, hydrogen tank in the hydrogen tank, the little bottles that you carry, they will also get refilled in the oxygen tank or the hydrogen tank. So in theory, the O2 generator is not required, but if you want to fill the hydrogen tanks up, you need an O2 generator somewhere. The oxygen tank can be filled by the farm or the oxygen farm. The hydrogen tanks cannot. Next up, connectors, conveyors, and that sort. These is how everything moves throughout your supply system of your ship. Gases, such as your oxygen and hydrogen, components that come from the assembler, ores, ingots to and from refinery, uranium to your refinery, or your wait for it, reactors, cargo, between cargo containers, everything goes through conveyors. The conveyor cube, conveyor block, there's 6 sides, 1, 2, 3, 4, up top, 5, and 6. You got a straight one, and you got a curved one. I'll come back to this. Small grid. Not everything can fit into the small grid, the small conveyor tubes. That's what these are for. These are the big ones. Everything can fit through these conveyor tubes. These are large, small grid conveyors. You got the box, you got the straight, you got the elbowed, and you got 3 little ports on it. I believe on both sides actually. This one is just the same thing as this, but what this is for is, since small grids are these little blocks wide, obviously you may have a little gap in between here, or in between here, or in between here. This is just a filler to fill that gap. They all work the same. Things go in one end and out the other. You can connect it between the reactors, the refineries, the cargo, whatever. Up next will be the sorters. This is a sorter. This is a sorter, and there's another one this size. Conveyor sorters. Let's see if I can find the access port. They blacklist or whitelist items. So blacklist or whitelist. That means whatever you put in here can either whitelist, aka it goes through that, or blacklist, it cannot go through that. So you got your general groups, ammo, components, hand tools, ingots, ore, and then you got all your all your items in the game. So if I were to put let's say blacklist, I'll blacklist. Blacklist ammo. Ammunition cannot pass through this conveyor sorter because I hit blacklist and I activated ammo. So if I were to put cargo container, this conveyor sorter, and a cargo container, and I would try to move ammo from this cargo to this cargo, it won't go because it's blacklisted. If I was to whitelist it, that means only ammo can go through this conveyor sorter. And if you put drain all on, it actively sucks from one end to the other. So whitelist, ammo, drain all. Same thing, cargo container, sorter, cargo container. And I would have put ammo in this, it would automatically pull it from this over to this. So what are sorters useful for? Sorters can be used to help control your inventory management. If you don't want to use a script, you can use sorters to do that. So say one in, one out, whitelist ingots in, whitelist ingots out. So only ingots will go into specific cargo containers. You can use them for, say, small ship. You can use it for ammo. So if I were to put this and then a Gatling gun on the end of this and drain all on, and then they used to put the Gatling gun ammunition at 25 millimeter by whatever NATO containers. And this will actually, every time I dock to a ship using a connector, this will automatically force my Gatling guns and my weapons to reload. Or I could put a small, or say I can do this, I can put a small grade cargo container on the end. Same thing, ammo. And after that, my Gatling guns. This will force ammunition into the small cargo container, and then the Gatling gun will always have ammo to grab from the small cargo container. If you have a miner and you don't want the stone, you could put. Let me find it. What's it called again? The ejectors. Ejectors automatically, well, they throw stuff out by turning them on. So I can put an ejector on here, turn it on, right? Throw out on, collect all, throw out on, collect all on, and then whitelist stone in here. And as I'm mining, this ejector will automatically be throwing the stone out. Stone, 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 stone. So I don't have to worry about stone. It'll only bring back ore. That's what ejectors are good for. And I didn't put any down, I might as well mention that. So that's another use of the sorters. Last but not least, something I also did not add in is connectors. Connectors are useful for docking two ships together, large grid or small grid, and you can transfer items through them as well. Right, so you see the little, it won't go down because it's not over the place, but you see the little grid right there. I can connect this onto the sorter or the conveyor tubing, and I can transfer items between ships easily. Next, cargo. Self-explanatory. Small cargo container, large cargo container. The small grid versions have a small cargo container, the large cargo container, but they also have a medium cargo container. Large grid does not have medium. That's all that's in the vanilla game. There are mods out there that have much bigger cargo containers. I'm not getting into that. Same thing with the tanks. They got mods for bigger or smaller hydrogen tanks and such. Moving on, these are some of your auxiliary stuff. I guess you can call it that. The projector. Projector is how you can print or repair ships. So, I'll show you an example here. Blueprints. Do I actually have a large grid blueprint? Yeah, I'll pull that up. That's a large grid element. Yeah, I know. Blueprints. There we goes. I was there for a second. But you can use this to make ships or repair ships. The trick is it cannot print subgrids. What are subgrids? These are subgrids. Anything built on top of a rotor, a hinge, or a piston is a subgrid. I'll get into that here, into these blocks shortly. But if you're in survival world and you build a big ship and then you build a piston and you put some big elaborate landing gear on it, and you go to try to print it with a projector, guess what? It's not going to be there because projectors cannot print subgrids. So every time Keen puts something out on Facebook that says, hey, how can we improve this? I always tell them, allow us to print subgrids with projectors. We're not there yet. How do projectors work? That's the front. That's the top. See the plus and minus. Minus faces forward, plus faces top. And Why is that important? If I go back into the projector, see the horizontal offset, the vertical offset, forward offset, that changes. It moves the projection around so you can position it in the right place to where you can actually build it. That's why that's important. Cryo chamber. Up next, cryo chamber. You can go to sleep in this. It is not required in single player. In multiplayer it is. If you log off a multiplayer world, it will force you to physically respawn, and anything in your inventory goes bye-byes. So whenever you log off in a multiplayer world, make sure you have a cryo chamber. Up next is a bed. The bed is the same exact thing as the cryo chamber, except this is not pressurized. This is. So if you're in an unpressurized world or atmosphere, make sure you go into a cryo chamber and you got your oxygen hooked up to the back. The bed, it doesn't matter as long as you're in a pressurized atmosphere. You got a nice little window there too. Up next is a decoy block. All the decoy block is exactly what it sounds like. Turrets and weaponry, AI turrets and weaponry I should say, will target this first. So if you put these on, say, a spike or something on your ship, the weapons will target this until it's destroyed. And they are weak. They destroy easily. So if you put these, make sure you cover them in heavy armor. Preferably heavily armor. You can do light also. It technically it's not required, but it'll get destroyed very, very quickly, and then your decoy blocks are like, huh, okay, now I want to target you instead. So that's what decoy blocks are for. Up next are just various control panels. You get your button panels. This is the standard one, the sci-fi. There's a sci-fi button panel as well. See the difference? This is the new, came with a new update, or the new update at the time of this recording. And you can actually change the screens around on here. So if I go in here, LCD panels, no content, script, analog clock, just for shits and giggles. You can see I now have a clock on there. But you can put anything you want on these. Also, available buttons. Right now it says nothing, but if I were to go in here and say reactor, sorry, F, reactor on and off. See, large reactor toggle block on and off. See, the large reactor is on. Hit that again, large reactor is off. Now if you see the text right there, large reactor toggle block on off. If you come in here under button 1, button name large reactor on off. I can name that to say power or whatever. And now power on off. Now obviously it's not all the power, but you get the idea. This also came with an update. This is a button. It's a wall mounted single button. These are floor mounted 4 buttons. Wall mounted single button. This and this are the same thing. This is the sci-fi version, which came with the update. This also came with the sci-fi update, by the way. This is just the one that's been in the game for ages. You use these to control anything with on your grid. That's all they are. Except this one, these are screens. You can change, put something on the screen. You can put some kind of fancy-dancy sci-fi display on this if you like. This one you can. Alright. Next. Hinges, pistons, rotors. Exactly what they sound like. The hinge goes back and forth. You can set limits, so if I come in here and go hinge, the torque, the rotors and stuff works the same way. Torque is the amount of power it forces into this to move it. Braking torque is the braking strength of the hinge. As you see how fast it will stop when applied. Applied when hinge is turned off. Velocity is how quickly. Lower and upper limits, that's the angle, the maximum angle. Either way, it will move So if I put velocity 1, it starts moving. 2, it goes quicker. If I hit reverse, it goes -2, it goes the other way, right? Now current angle, let's say upper limit 45. Bam, it stopped. Lower limit 20. Hit reverse, and go back the other way. 20. See? So you can make interesting designs with this. Rotor is the exact same way as this, except it spins. This goes back and forward. Now once again, if you were going to build anything in survival with these, whatever is on the end of this, or the end of this, will not print off a projector. Keep that in mind. You can build a ship, and then you can put a projector on the end of this, and then have like a sub part, and print that with a sub projector on this. You can do it that way, but it won't print as a whole. 2 tricks with these, with both the hinge and both the rotor. If I were to come in the hinge, you see where it says detach? If I would hit detach, it literally detached this part from the hinge. If I come back in here and hit attach, it reattaches it. You can add a hinge head, add a small hinge head. So if I were to come in here and say, I need a block, delete that, the part is gone. So if I get destroyed or something, I can just come in here, hit add hinge head, and it just replaces it. In survival, you would have to grind or weld this up. In creative mode, I don't have to. Same thing with the rotor. I can come in here, select rotor, and hit detach. And boom, it's gone. The trick with this is, if I come back into the rotor, watch this. Whoops. I can add a rotor head, which I just took off, or I can add a small head, right? That is effectively a small grid. So, wait on a lot. Oop, crap, wrong button. Back in here, add small head. I can now build a small grid on a large grid. Why is this helpful? The main reason this is helpful is projectors, which I didn't mention before, can only print their grid type. So a large grid projector can only print large grid ships. Small grid projector can only print small grid ships. So if I wanted to print a small ship on a large grid, I got 2 options. I can start off with a landing gear, a small grid landing gear, and then put a projector on that, or I can do this. I can put a rotor down, put a small rotor head on it, and then I can put a small grid projector on this. And now I can make small grid ships off of a large grid base, large grid mothership, like carrier or some sort. That's why that is extremely helpful. Next are the tools. These are the large grid versions, obviously, but they also make small grid ships for like small grid versions. Grinder tears down grids, just like your hand tools. Grinder. Welder, you use a welder to make ships. And drill, you use to drill to mine. Nothing fancy about them. Nothing really needs to be explained. Just connect them up to your conveyor system, cargo container, put them on your ship somehow or another, and you can make, well, you can make ships, you can tear down ships, or you can go mining with it. Simple as that. Ore detector. Ore detector is exactly what it sounds like. You look around and see where it says nickel or silicone. That is coming off of the ore detector. You will not see the nickel or the silicone unless two options. One, you have to physically be in a control seat that on the grid that the ore detector is attached to. So say a miner, you put an ore detector on your miner and it'll show you where the ores are. Or B, an antenna of some sort. The ore detector can broadcast the ore's location onto your HUD through the antenna. If I were to come in here, turn off the antenna, what? Okay, it should not have been there with the beacon, it should have only been there with the antenna. Beacon. Antenna. Yep. I don't know if that's a bug, but it should only be there with the antenna. So if I come in here, let's go to ore detector. Broadcast using antennas, turn that off. See, they disappeared. That's just like there not being any antenna. Ore detector, broadcast using antenna, and then you have a range. Vanilla large grid is 150, and I believe small grid is 50 meters. They have mods that change this if you want a bigger range. But if you're going to go mining with a miner or something, you need an ore detector. And you see up the range, and now we have iron. Up next, antenna, beacon. Both of these put a status display on your HUD that says where they are. The antenna allows you to access, remote access. I can access my terminal without actually accessing it as long as there's an antenna on board. The beacon, you cannot. That's the advantage of the antenna. The disadvantage of the antenna is it uses more power than the beacon. So, antenna, right? Broadcasting range 50,000 meters, current input 200 kilowatts. Go back to the beacon. Broadcasting range 50,000 meters, current input 20 kilowatts. So the beacon uses an awfully lot less power. But the antenna allows you to physically communicate. Now, you have to be in range of this. I can't remember what the suit range is. I think it's 200 meters maybe. So let's go out 200 meters. Remote access. See, I cannot access the grid terminal. Even though I am in range of the antenna, and I can see the antenna, my suit range, if you look down in the bottom left where O, where my internal suit antenna, there's only 200 meters. So if I come down here, nope, what was it? Was it 100? Or 200? I was at 250, there we go. I can take control of this. There's a way around this. If I were to have a second antenna over here, and they're both in range of each other, I can still access that grid from my suit antenna. So it's the regular antenna, and it is everywhere, like all directions. What I mean by that is something I did not put down was laser. Laser antenna. The range of the laser antenna is, I think it's actually infinite now. I think they changed it. Yep, infinite, up to infinite. The catch is, it has to be line of sight. So if I'm sitting there flying a drone remotely through the laser antenna, hooked to another drone, to the drone's antenna, if I were to fly behind that mountain, I would lose connection. If I was using the laser antenna. I can use this, and I can pick up a grid on that side of the I don't know what that is. Is that Mars, maybe? But you got one, you got something there, you got one up there. I could pick something up on either of those planets or moons. This laser antenna, as long as there's another laser antenna there. But if I were to fly in front of this or something was blocking this, I suddenly lose access. You can literally be sitting here on planet Earth, put a laser antenna down, go all the way to the Mars or whatever, have another laser antenna, and you can access a remote outpost or remote base through the terminal from here. You can access its cameras, its a power status, anything you want with a laser antenna. That's the cool thing. Unlimited range, but it's line of sight. They have a new one called the Dish. This came in with the Frost Pack. I can't remember what its range is. I think it's just a regular antenna, but it just looks different. Yeah, 50,000. That was just that. It just looks differently. Alright, moving on. Thrusters. Atmospheric. You got your small, you got your large. Obviously, these are the large grid ones. They have small grid ones. You get the sci-fi thrusters on the bottom. You got your standard vanilla thrusters on the top. The sci-fi ones, once again, came with a DLC. These only work on planets with atmosphere and only do a certain altitude. I think through testing is about 5 or 10,000 meters at least off the Earth planet. After that, they start to lose efficiency. And if you were building a ship, you would need to have hydrogen thrusters as well to compensate the atmospheric ones once you got up to a certain altitude. Ion thrusters. Same thing, small, large. Science, vanilla, vanilla. These work in space, but not on planets. Well, they do work on planets, but they're extremely, extremely weak. You would need an awfully lot of them to actually do anything, and that's expensive. Because there's a mod called the Tiered Thruster Pack. It comes with thrusters that one of them equals 16. That's the Angel Fire, so it's like times 4. Level 4 Angel Fire thrusters in the mod pack. So like one of these in the mod pack will equal 16 of these, and if you place several of these down, you can actually fly inside a planet. But that is like the equivalent of having like 50 or 60 of these thrusters facing in one direction. So needless to say, they work, but they're so weak. They're very, very underpowered on planets. They work in space great. Hydrogen thrusters. Hydrogen thrusters are the most powerful thrusters in the game. They work both on planets and they work in atmosphere, in space. The catch is, they require hydrogen to run. So you'll need to be either hydrogen tanks or an O2 generator with ice on board. That's the balancing fact. They're the most powerful, they work in both places, but they require hydrogen. What I would do is, if you're making a ship just to fly around on planets, atmospherics will work. If you're making a ship for both, depending on what you want to do, you may want to put a combination of all three. So say you fly around with atmospheres, you get up so high, you activate your hydrogen to get you into the space, and once you're in space, you can turn off both atmosphere and hydrogen and fly around on your ions. And say for whatever reason you need that extra boost of power, like you get into combat or something and you're not quite as maneuverable as you like, you can activate your hydrogens thrusters as well. It all depends on how you want to build your ship, what kind of balancing you want to do, where you want to fly, what kind of thrusters you want to use. These require just electrical power, which is any kind of electrical power over there. That requires hydrogen. The other thing is, it uses very, 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 very little electricity. So you can have less power on board and just rely on hydrogen. Whereas these can require a lot of electricity. So you may have to have several reactors and a bunch of batteries on board. or even one battery on board, but you only have like 30 minutes of flight time. Things like that. Since this tutorial is more for beginners, just getting into space engineers, the more thrusters you have from here over, the more power source you need. These two, less power source, but more hydrogen you need. And as you build in the game, as you get used to the game, as you learn and get more experience, you can start to balance things out. What you do, how much power do I want, how much hydrogen do I want, do I want to use atmosphere, do I want to use ion, do I want to use hydrogen. Okay, next, moving on. Making contact with the ground. Landing gear. Landing gear is exactly what it sounds like, that you land with them. These can attach to the ground, they can attach to other grids. So you can land on the side of the mountain facing up, attached with your landing gears, and your ship won't go nowhere. You can land onto another ship, like a carrier or a landing pad. And wherever the large ship, the mothership goes, your little fighter or whatever transport will go, because you have it attached with a landing gear. And you also do not have to use these as just landing only. You can make forklifts, you can make like cranes, you can make utility ships. Like actually, with the Frost Pack that came, this was in the new world, Frostback world that they made. I did not make this. I'm not taking credit for this. This was in the update. Landing gears and forklift, so I can move things around with this. In fact, if you go watch my Let's Play series that I'm doing right now, when we were on the New World Triton, called the Forgotten World series, we actually had some batteries flying around. We made this physically made this forklift in the game, and we moved batteries around with it and attached them to our base. So that's not the only use of landing gears. And on that note, merge block. You can connect stuff together, connect grids together, connect ships together. By using merge blocks, right? So walk a little bit here. So if I build this, right? Boom, see how they're green? They just connected together. So you can actually attach multiple grids together and then build a block. Say like that, like this would be a ship. And now you just turn two ships into one. That's a story for another day, but just know the merge blocks are there. Wheels are good for making rovers. You got your 1x1, your 3x3, your 5x5 wheels. You can change the settings, you can change the dampening settings, you can change the ride height. You can change the power settings, you can change the friction settings. Build a rover, mess around with it. The tires are very, very strong. They're good for making bumpers, I guess. So say you're in a rover, you actually put a couple of tires on the front, and if you impact a tree or something, more than likely just a plain wheel will take the impact. My plain wheel, if I go into wheel, right, 1x1, 3x3, 5x3, that's just a plain wheel. I would put that there, say this is a rover, and I was driving around this way, I impact the tree, the tire could take the impact instead of damaging my rover. Next up, your well, this is really your quality of life stuff, I guess you'd call it that. Let's start from this then. All this is just cosmetics. Really, you got your little shower, you got your toilet. This is your passenger seat, so you can make a shuttle and people can sit in your passenger seat. These are your neon lights that just came out with a new DLC. They're in the sunlight, so you can't really see them, but they're pretty neat. These are lockers. Lockers can actually store things in them, so you can put like rifles and your bottles, your oxygen bottles, hydrogen bottles, your tools and stuff in them. So say you can put a locker. This is also a locker. That's a corner locker. You can put a locker by your med bay or your survival kit, And if you die on respawn, instead of trying to run to a cargo container to get your kit, your gear, you can have a locker right there. You can get the grab from it. Basic couch, just a seat. This is called an armory, but it's the same thing. It's just a locker. Plant, a desk, bathroom, just cosmetic stuff. LCD screens. LCD screens can you can put import outside images onto this. You can put import outside like pictures, scripts. You can have scripts display information on this. You can put notes on this. Like if I go in here, context, text and images, edit text, hello would appear, and I can change the grid size, the font size, change the color of the text, you can change the background of the text padding, which moves it around, alignment, right, center, text padding up and down, loaded textures, so I can select something, right? Text and images, online, remove selected, no entry, construction, I can add that, and where is it change? So I can say no entry, construction. This is more for decoration, really, but it's there. No, you can do it. If you have a script running, the script can display information on the LCD screen. This is just the same thing. It's just transparent. Programmable blocks run scripts. Scripts can do, well, all kinds of things in the game. And you could display information, you can have them run your power, and things of that nature. We'll get into scripts later, but just know it's there. And now for your basic putting everything together. I got a cockpit, I got a landing gear, I got a gyroscope, I got my power source, which is a battery, and I got my thrusters. These are atmospheric thrusters. Since I'm on a planet, I do not need anything facing upwards. I get in my seat, release my landing gear, up, down, left, right. I can roll because I got my gyroscope, look left, up and down. Right. This is what I was talking about where ions aren't very good in planets. If I do the same thing and release my landing gear, watch what happens. Why did that happen? Because the thrusters can't hold me up. Not enough hold. Alright, so that's the basic overview of pretty much all the blocks in the game. I didn't cover all of them. There you got like some catwalks and stuff in there, but using this list you can pretty much get yourself started in building your first ship, first grid, first space station, whichever you want to call it, whatever you want to do. Thank you for joining me, and, well, get started. Enjoy Space Engineers. Have a good day, folks.